My name is Carter King. My parents? They weren't my blood relatives. My biological parents tragically died in a car accident when I was just a child. With no family to take me in, I ended up in a foster home, navigating a world that felt cold and unfamiliar. Those early years were marked by loneliness, no mother's lullaby, no father's reassuring presence, but even in that solitude, I found joy in the simplest moments, especially mealtime. The aroma of hearty meals lingered in the air, and every bite seemed to carry a small promise of comfort. One day, everything changed. An elderly couple visited the foster home. I vaguely recall them standing at a distance, their warm smiles radiating kindness as they watched me eat. Their expressions held something I hadn't seen in a long time: hope. Weeks later, those same gentle souls, the Kings, decided to adopt me. I didn't hesitate to call them Grandpa and Grandma, my heart opening to their love as naturally as the sun rises. Life with them was simple yet beautiful. They cultivated a modest garden, growing vegetables they sold at a local farmer's market. Despite their hard work, the earnings were humble. But what couldn't be sold, imperfect cucumbers, oddly shaped potatoes, became the heart of our meals. Grandma's pickled cucumbers and steaming bowls of potato soup became my favorite. Be thankful for your food, Grandpa often said. There are many who struggle to find even this. Carter, I hope you grow up to help those who are hungry and in pain. His words weren't just advice, they were seeds planted deep in my heart. Though we lived without luxuries, our days were rich with love and laughter. I pitched in on the farm while juggling high school. As graduation neared, I thought about working to support my grandparents financially, but Grandpa, as if reading my mind, told me, "Don't worry about money. Do what you want to do." What I wanted was clear: to help people. But how? At that moment, I lacked the tools and knowledge. College seemed like the answer, a path where I could learn about social work, economics, logistics, everything needed to make a difference. Then one evening, Grandpa handed me a small bank book. "Carter King," he said softly. "This is for you." The account was in my name. He had been quietly saving for my education all these years. Tears welled up as I realized the magnitude of their sacrifices. Determined to honor their gift, I poured myself into college, devoting every ounce of energy to my studies. Even as I thrived, guilt lingered. I knew my education came at a cost to them. I promised myself that one day I'd repay their kindness in a way they'd never forget. After graduation, I landed a job at a food company committed to social welfare. Grandpa had heard about the opportunity from a friend and encouraged me to apply. "Maybe this is the job you've been searching for," he said. My early days at the company were intense. I was assigned to the sales department and threw myself into every task, copying documents, making phone calls, shadowing experienced colleagues. I arrived earlier than anyone, determined to learn everything about our products. But not everyone was supportive. Eric, the head of the sales department, seemed to take an instant dislike to me. He was a powerful figure, rumored to care only about those who could boost his career. One day, he approached my desk with an icy stare. "You seem hardworking," he said with a sneer. "Come up with a new product proposal. You've got a day." His tone left no room for negotiation. I worked tirelessly, drawing inspiration from Grandma's cooking, and presented an idea for a stir-fry vegetable sauce. Eric barely glanced at it before dismissing it with a scoff. "Who would buy this? We cater to upscale clients." "This isn't a charity," he said, his words dripping with disdain. "Didn't your poor upbringing teach you anything about good food?" The sting of his words lingered, but I refused to let them break me. Every day was a battle, but I held on to one dream: treating my grandparents to a luxurious dinner with my first paycheck. They had sacrificed so much for me, and I longed to give them a taste of indulgence. Finally, the day came. I received my paycheck and, with a colleague's recommendation, made a reservation at a fine dining restaurant. When I called my grandparents to invite them, they were bewildered. "Are we really going to such a fancy place?" Grandma asked hesitantly. "Yes," I said, my voice firm. "This is my gift to you, my way of saying thank you." The night of the dinner, as we stepped into the elegant restaurant, I felt a mix of pride and nerves. The soft glow of chandeliers reflected in Grandma's teary eyes as she whispered, "It's all thanks to Carter's thoughtfulness." Grandpa beamed. "Let's enjoy this feast without holding back," he said, his voice full of joy. And just as we were settling in, from a back room, I heard a voice, one that sent a chill down my spine. The door swung open with a creak, and from the shadows, a familiar voice emerged. It was him. "Hi, good evening," I said, my posture snapping straight without thinking. The words escaped me automatically, my heart pounding in my chest. He looked at me, eyes narrowing, a smirk curling at the corner of his lips. "Ha, why are you here?" His tone was sharp, dripping with disdain. I swallowed hard, feeling small under his gaze. Just having dinner with my family," I stammered, barely finding the strength to keep my voice steady. His eyes flicked over us, scanning us with a dismissive sneer. "This place is for entertaining important clients, not for common folks like you," he scoffed, his words cutting through the air like a blade. "Coming to a restaurant in such cheap attire is out of place. Even if you eat high-end food, you won't appreciate its value." His words struck like a cold wind, and I felt a sharp pang in my chest. I had expected so much more from this night, the dream of treating my grandparents to something special. But now, I had made them feel small, too. I had failed in my mission to bring joy. The warmth I had hoped for turned to icy discomfort. My frustration boiled over, but before I could respond, Grandpa, who had been silently listening, spoke up. His voice was calm but carried an authority that made the room fall silent. "The one who's out of place is you," he said, his tone colder than I had ever heard before. There was a fire in his words that sent a shiver down my spine. I watched as Eric, taken aback by the change in Grandpa's demeanor, took a step forward, ready to lash out. "Who do you think you're talking to?" Eric sneered, moving toward Grandpa, but he faltered when he caught sight of my grandfather's face, his expression stoic and unyielding. Eric stopped in his tracks, his confidence shattered. "Mr. King," he stammered, his voice wavering, his arrogance melting away. His face drained of color, and for a moment, he looked completely defeated. He sank into a chair, his head lowered in defeat. Grandpa's voice softened, but it held a certain strength as he spoke again. "Bringing happiness to everyone through the power of food," he murmured, as if the words carried memories, reverence, and truth. "That's the corporate philosophy of Inspiring Foods." I stood frozen, listening intently as Grandpa began to reveal a history I had never known. "I've been meaning to tell you this, Carter. Are you ready to hear me out?" His voice lowered as he continued, sharing a part of our family's past I had never heard. "Our family has owned vast lands for generations," he began, his eyes distant as if reliving something long ago. "We never lacked for anything. But one day, over 30 years ago, the president of Inspiring Foods came to us with a proposition. He wanted to buy our land to build a factory, to expand his company." He paused, then continued, his voice filled with both admiration and sadness. As we spoke, I learned about the president's past. He had grown up in poverty, often going hungry. His dream, his true mission, was to provide delicious meals for as many children as possible. He wanted to feed the hungry, the orphaned, the lost. Grandpa's gaze softened as he spoke of the president's passion. I was moved. My wife and I, we love children, but we couldn't have any of our own. So we made the decision to give him the land we didn't need, to help him fulfill his mission. We agreed with the philosophy of bringing happiness to everyone through food. I became a shareholder in the company, and I invested in his vision. He looked at me, eyes gleaming with warmth. We stayed in touch over the years. And then, one day, he took me to visit a foster home. It was there I met you, Carter. I felt my heart swell as Grandpa continued. While other children were fussing about not liking their vegetables, there you were, enjoying every bite, your mouth full of food, smiling. You said it was delicious. Grandpa chuckled softly. It was so adorable, Carter. I knew then that I wanted you to be part of our family. I listened in awe as Grandpa revealed how they had adopted me, not just because of my love for food, but because of the kindness they saw in me. You've grown into a kind-hearted young man, he said. I knew you could do something good with your life. That's why I thought you could be of service at Inspiring Foods. Eric, standing nearby, was silent now. He was no longer the arrogant man he had been moments before. That's admirable, he said, forcing a smile and offering his hand to Grandpa. I made a mistake earlier. Carter is an exceptionally talented individual. But Grandpa was unwavering. He looked at Eric with cold disdain. It's too late, he said, his voice firm. You'll never understand the true value of a meal. The value of sharing a table with loved ones. Inspiring Foods is a company that saves people through the power of food. You have no right to call yourself part of it. I had never seen Grandpa like this. His words struck with such finality that Eric, pale and trembling, stumbled back. Without another word, Eric fled, vanishing as quickly as he had come. The three of us sat down to eat, the warmth of the meal filling the silence. We shared stories, laughter, and moments I would never forget. I told them about my struggles at work, how hard I had worked to prove myself, how much I wanted to repay their kindness. Grandpa smiled warmly. Of course you've repaid us, Carter. You've grown up, you're working hard, and you're living as a respectable adult. That's more than enough for us. Grandma's eyes sparkled as she added, today's meal will be an unforgettable memory. The bond between us felt stronger than ever, a deep connection that no words could truly capture. The next day, Eric was nowhere to be found. Rumors circulated that his past transgressions had finally caught up with him. Complaints about his behavior had surfaced from several new hires and employees, leading to his dismissal by the board. Gerald, the colleague who had recommended the restaurant, became the new head of the sales department. No one has worked as hard as you in their first month, he said, offering me a warm smile. He even took the time to review my rejected proposal, offering thoughtful suggestions. You might even become president one day, he joked, showing his support. I smiled, but I wasn't focused on that. I had one goal in mind, to continue working, learning, and contributing to the mission that had inspired me from the very beginning. I wanted to be part of a business that brought happiness through food, that helped those in need, just as I had been helped. For now, I would give everything I had, because every meal, every shared moment, held a power I had come to understand. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the love, the care, and the shared joy that came with it. And so, I continued to work, not just for myself, but for society, to create moments of happiness for others. Today, as always, my journey was just beginning.